to pretzels. Chris Sims releasing his top 40 QB list. I always like this project. He kind of drips them out. Coming in at number 17 is the guy who led the league in passer rating and walked off the field with the lead in the Super Bowl. His name is Brock Purdy.
Oh, intriguing.
What?
Now you love Chris Sims. Wait till he has Mahomes second.
Okay, he won't, but go ahead.
Here's Chris Sims.
When, the Shanahan tricks get taken away and he can't get in rhythm and get going that way, he can still make some throws, and no doubt he can do that. And like we saw in the Super Bowl, he can get out of the pocket and make a few plays and do that, definitely. But, like I've said with some other guys, there's a lot more wow decisions than wow throws on the tape.
Wow decisions, wow throws.
Here we go.
Where have we heard that before? Hey guys, you guys are all, here's a prediction. I am going to get attacked in this segment for something Chris Sims said. Because can we show you a little more of what Chris Sims said? Because it sounds a lot like something I have said.
Pettiness.
He had no business winning the divisional game this year. None. He should have thrown 4 interceptions at least. Guys, show some respect to Chris Sims. I mean, he hit Green Bay in the chest 5 different times. He missed people open everywhere. It goes on. He wasn't that much better than the Lions game. And, of course, in the Super Bowl, what I would say to a lot of people, if you had a top 10 quarterback, you won the Super Bowl. You guys are rolling your eyes. Guys, okay, so
Nick doesn't understand that this makes his argument for Patrick Mahomes being the greatest quarterback in the history of the universe. Like, why won't he get that? If he keeps doing that, Chris Sims is saying that if they had a better quarterback, then the Chiefs don't win. Therefore, Patrick Mahomes is not that special. Because all you do is just need a top 10 quarterback to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes. So this whole idea of Patrick Mahomes carrying the Chiefs last season becomes a meaningless argument. Because you're saying that then he beat literally a quarterback who's not even a quarterback anymore in the NFL in Jimmy Garoppolo. And he beat Brock Purdy, who is apparently the 17th best quarterback. Where is that impressive then? Like, I just, like, again, like, when is he going to get that argument, though, then? Because, and again, I admitted, too, before, that Brock Purdy absolutely could have lost to the Packers and all the interceptions. Like, I totally wholeheartedly agree with that. I do agree with that point. But at the same time, we also have to recognize, though, that we can do that with a lot of other quarterbacks and teams. Patrick Mahomes threw an interception in the Super Bowl against the 49ers, and he's darn lucky that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to pick him up and not give up a score, because he really threw a terrible interception. I forget, I think Greg Olsen said, like, that was one of the worst interceptions he's ever seen Patrick Mahomes throw. So, again, like, every quarterback needs to get picked up by his team every once in a while. And so I get it. And I actually made a video earlier today talking about that game with the Packers versus the 49ers and the margin of error, and how if just one of those interceptions were caught, then boom, then the Packers do win that game. So I always point those things out, how it's more about one team winning versus one team losing. I think it's always important to kind of view those games through that lens. But if you're a fan of the individual team, they never want to hear it. The 49ers fans do not want to hear that the Packers lost that game. They won that game. They played better football. They beat the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions didn't lose that game, right? But then you get to the Super Bowl, and it's like, well, who won that game? Did the 49ers lose that game, or did the Kansas City Chiefs win that game?
Here's the thing. You guys can be as mad as you want. Again, not my take, Chris Sims' take. Also, I think it was fair. Did you see who he had 18? Tua. He had him ahead of Tua.
Well,
you and I have
I'll
talked.
give you that.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
The guys he had right in front of
Isn't Kyler in front of him? And I like Kyler.
He had Kyler one spot.
You had maybe
he had
the
Big
worst
Show.
playoff performance.
Big Show and Aaron Rodgers.
He had Jordan. He had Kirk. He had Trevor all ahead of him. He had those guys ahead of him.
We don't have his list.
No, and so, but I mean, I can tell it to you.
Baker Mayfield.
But here's the other thing, and take this for what you will. But I have 4 people's names tattooed on my body: my 3 kids and my wife. right? Different parts of my body. I would say that I have a pretty good idea of their feelings on a lot of things.
Sure.
Chris Sims, best I can tell, has one person's initials tattooed on his body, and you can look this up, America, and it's Kyle Shanahan's. So
now that's weird in and of itself.
What are we talking about here? He has Shanahan's initials tattooed on his body. Wow, I did not know that.
So
now that's weird in and of itself.
That is an analysis leap of.
Okay. So you're saying it's a leap of massive proportion. What I am saying is it reasonable to say he has an idea more than just the average guy talking football of what Kyle thinks of quarterbacks because they were tight enough to get each other's initials tattooed on their bodies? I say yes. I think it's reasonable to think that. So take it for what you will, America, but it's true. It's a fact.
It would make sense if we didn't have a track record of Chris Sims being wrong. And wrong again. And wrong again about the 49ers.
Okay.
All right, didn't he say they were drafting Mac Jones? Yeah, he did. In fact, he said they're drafting Mac Jones because he's the one that's most NFL ready after Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
this is the list that we're championing?
Well, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson went 1-2.
Yeah, but Zach Wilson clearly misread Zach Wilson. And he has said time and time again, in all seriousness, he has no inside information about the Niners.
All right, you know what?
He has said that. I mean, that's just Chris Sims.
So he's just grinding the all-22 and coming up with the exact opinion I have.
Well,
slightly below average quarterback.
I am a facts over feelings.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And these are the facts.
Okay.
The graphic,
yes.
Dusty, please.
Yeah, Dusty.
This is a guy, first in passer rating, first in yards per. This is last year. I mean, just look at the numbers.
None of this has to do with the playoffs, which is what he's talking about.
He was in the Super Bowl.
The playoffs, he led the comeback against Detroit, which is what you wanted to see. I mean, I guess you saw it a few times in the regular season.
Not mine.
You said it was yours.
He led a great comeback against Detroit. Played well in the Super Bowl, and we want to talk about who shouldn't have won this and who shouldn't have won that. Heck, should Matt Stafford have even been in the Super Bowl with the Rams? If it was Jaquiski's Tart right here. I'm just saying. Aaron Rodgers, his first trip to the Super Bowl in that NFC title game threw 2 interceptions and no touchdown. I mean, come on, let's not do that. The numbers speak for themselves.
But then
I'll defer to Joe Montana and Steve
Hold
Young
on, but he's talking
about
the playoffs. So do you agree that the drop-off in play from the regular season to the playoffs was that significant?
But Patrick Mahomes' numbers in the Super Bowl had a massive drop-off. In multiple Super Bowls, not just one Super Bowl where we can say that as a frame of reference, multiple Super Bowls, his passer rating, his touchdown to interception ratios, yards per pass, passing yards per game, completion percentage, all significantly drop off. So again, Nick has to use that argument then to call out Patrick Mahomes.
A 25-point drop in passer rating.
He's got 4 wins in the playoffs, which is, take out Aaron Rodgers, and you mentioned the guys ahead of him. The 5 guys ahead of him, minus Rodgers, have 5 playoff wins in their career. He's got 4. You know what else he's got? A Super Bowl appearance, which all 5 of them combined do not have.
So which quarterback, out of all the great quarterbacks that the Chiefs played on their road to their Super Bowl victory, played the best against that vaunted defense?
No,
not statistically. This year,
you thought Allen didn't play well.
I thought
Allen faded in the fourth quarter.
Wait, I thought, how many points did the Niners score? How well? This is what drives
enough to
me
go
crazy.
to overtime.
Right.
Enough to go to overtime with a dynasty in motion.
Hold on. You asked me a question. I'm answering.
No, you asked me a question. You didn't answer it. You asked me a question.
Which is the idea.
Hold on, let's do this real fast.
Answer.
No, with a dynasty.
They're both doing some pretty interesting poses right here. Okay.
Yeah,
in the motion.
Hold on. You asked me a question. I'm answering.
No, you asked me a question. You didn't answer it.
No,
you asked me a question.
Yeah, which is the idea that the Niners offense rolled in that game. I disagree with.
Saying that.
I'm not saying they rolled. I'm saying did he play better than Lamar Jackson did against that?
Yes.
Did he play better than Tua did?
Yes.
Did he play better than Josh Allen did?
No, I thought Josh Allen played the best of all the 4 quarterbacks the Chiefs played in the playoffs. I thought Josh Allen played the best, and I know I was on this show with you guys saying how well you thought Josh
I thought
played.
Allen did play well.
Yes.
But I thought
I
Purdy played well, too.
Purdy played better than Josh Allen.
Okay,
He had a bad
I remember you talking about how you thought Allen faded in that fourth
I did.
quarter.
I didn't think
played
anyone
better.
who played
Made
the
him not
Chiefs
play a
defense
good
in this
game.
road to the Super Bowl played an A+ game. I thought the best game was played by Josh Allen. I also, as I thought, again, I don't have Chris Sims doesn't have my initials tattooed on him. I got no relationship with him. This is his opinion, and I think it is
You
not
think Kyle
that.
Shanahan feels that way
I
about
think
Purdy?
it is not out of the mainstream to feel like if the Niners had a top 10 quarterback, they would have won the Super Bowl. I don't think it's out of the mainstream.
That's
to think
not how
He's basing it on playoffs. And he's going to have Dak in the top 10.
What's
they
not
couldn't
how it
even
works?
win a
You're not
playoff
allowed
game.
to do that. You're not allowed to fill out everybody awesome and have a $60 million quarterback.
Right.
So, yeah,
Agreed.
if you had a super team with a super quarterback, then yes, because it's against the cap and against the rules.
Agreed. So you're agreeing with me they don't have a super quarterback.
I think
no
that
problem.
the team, Tua, slim down.
Okay. That conversation went off the rails, and they were saying a lot there. Listen, I think at the end of the day, this is why you can't just go off of the numbers. And that other graphic where they showed the drop off from from 2023 regular season to the playoffs for Purdy, as I highlighted, we see a big drop off for Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl as well. And it's a real thing that happens. His numbers completely fall off. And so he's thrown 5 interceptions in 4 Super Bowls. And I think that, and his passer rating is in the 80s, I believe. And so it's just one of those things where it is a combination between looking at the numbers, looking at the players you're playing with, as well as the coaching, your opponents, and the eye test. And what do they look like? What are the eyes when we're watching this game? And I agree. If you put Josh Allen on the 49ers, then the 49ers win. Okay? That's my opinion, and I don't really think that that's the outside of mega 49ers fans, that really shouldn't be that controversial, quite honestly. But this idea, though, that Brock Purdy is just a bottom tier, because that is when you put 17th, that's bottom tier quarterback. I just don't think that's necessarily fair. And again, to put Baker Mayfield above Brock Purdy, I reject that notion. Because then Sim says oh well, without some of the magic of Shanahan and stuff like that, who is Brock Purdy? And I get to a degree that argument, but again, we could say that though about a lot of great coaches. With Andy Reid, Shanahan, McVay, we could always say that. That's just a reality. So I just think that this conversation gets degraded because we're not consistent with the variables and the criteria here. Because if we want to pull back Brock Purdy for certain things, whether it be because of the coaching and the weapons, then we have to afford those same things to the other quarterbacks, whether to elevate them or also pull them back, right? Because it's just okay, so then Josh Allen has to be given an extra boost because he does not have Shanahan or the weapons of a Christian McCaffrey and an Ayuk and Debo and all of that. And then the same thing with Patrick Mahomes, we have to pull him back down a little bit because you have Andy Reid. You had the number 1 defense, right? You have these weapons. You have Travis Kelce. So it's always a push and pull type of thing. But it seems like with Brock Purdy, what it comes down to is that they only want to pull him back for those reasons and not apply that same logic for the other quarterbacks. I'm not here to tell you that Brock Purdy is the top 3 quarterback in the NFL. I'm not also here to tell you that he's at the bottom of the list as well. I don't rank these people in order, in any particular order, quite honestly. I put them all in groups as to what they all can and can't do. Are they in the same category with one another? Not this one's second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Like that's not as interesting to me, and I think that conversation is brutally impossible. Absolutely impossible. Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have all had insanely different experiences in the NFL because of their teams. Insanely. Joe Burrow has 2 number 1 receivers. Okay? Patrick Mahomes has the greatest offensive coach in the history of the world and entered the league with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Josh Allen has a defensive head coach who has no idea what he's doing on offense and has had a revolving door of OCs. Like, they all have completely wildly different backgrounds. Brock Purdy got drafted to Shanahan with an elite roster. That's completely different than Bryce Young going to the Carolina Panthers. Then Tua going to the Dolphins before they finally hired an offensive coach and went out and got Tyreek Hill. So these quarterbacks all come from such different backgrounds that it's impossible for me to say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, so that's why I just look at them and say, what do I believe these quarterbacks are capable of doing given universal and consistent equal circumstances? If they all had identical teams, would they win? And the answer is, on identical teams, yes, Patrick Mahomes wins. Yes, Joe Burrow wins. Yes, Josh Allen wins. Absolutely. Like, those are like the undeniables to me. And then you start to have some of these other quarterbacks of what can they do? Do they rely more heavily on their roster, on their coach? And yes, I think Purdy on a spectrum is more reliant on his roster and his coach than, say, a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Joe Burrow. But that's not to say that the Patrick Mahomes of the world don't benefit from also a good roster or a great coach or a great defense. But I do believe that, like, a Patrick Mahomes can do more with less than a Brock Purdy. But that doesn't mean that we then just crumble up Purdy and throw him in the trash can or have him drop all the way down to the 17th spot. Because it's also always a balance of what you do in the regular season and what you do in the playoffs. And can you win? What can you do? And then we look at some of these other quarterbacks who can't seem to step up in the playoffs. Whether it be a Dak Prescott, potentially a Lamar Jackson. I'm not prepared to just throw Lamar out in the trash either because of some of his playoff experiences. I blame more the coaching staff for that than anything. But I do agree, and I said this, if Brock Purdy just played 5% better, then the 49ers win the Super Bowl. So I'm on the record saying that. That's not to say that Brock Purdy played bad, but he wasn't enough to overcome the issues that the 49ers found themselves in. But it's not to say that Brock Purdy is the reason why the 49ers lost either. All of these things can be true. All of them can be true. Greenlaw doesn't get injured. If Christian McCaffrey doesn't fumble, if they don't fumble on the punt return, like all of those little things, the 49ers win. But what makes a quarterback that next level is being able to overcome some of those things, some of those deficits, overcome that margin of error that is being, exploited in that moment. And that is where you're not so sure of Purdy. He was able to overcome some of that in against the Packers and against the Lions. And that really won a lot of points for me. He got elevated in my own eyes. And can we really hold his feet to the fire for not being able to do that against the number 1 defense against the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't think that's necessarily fair, right? But listen, if you put Brock Purdy on the, I don't know, like just name a random team, the Giants, the Commanders, right? Like, he's not winning. He's not doing anything. But to say, though, that he's only something because he's with the 49ers and that roster, I disagree with that also. Because I'm not so sure we could put whoever the heck, Sam Howell or even a Dak Prescott or Gardner Minshew, even a modern day Jimmy Garoppolo, like back on the 49ers, if they have a one-way ticket to the Super Bowl again. I mean, make no mistake about it, Purdy still has to put in the work. Purdy still has to make the throws, make the reads. Like, he's still doing things. And in the Super Bowl, that 49ers offense was not looking unbelievably amazing. And the reality is that was not on Purdy. Purdy wasn't the deficit on that offense. Again, he wasn't good enough to overcome the deficit, but he wasn't the reason why there was a deficit. And that's really important. When you're the 17th best quarterback in the NFL, you're usually then part of the deficit on the team. And he was not. So that's why he is a better than a 17th best quarterback. And I will definitely have him over. I'll definitely rather have Brock Purdy over Dak Prescott, over Baker Mayfield. And I'm not sure who else was on that list. And I'm not going to go through that list all on the top of my head right now. But I would like to see who else was, ahead of Purdy. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that Brock Purdy, is this too high, too low, or just right? Do you think he's the 17th best quarterback? If not, do you think he should be lower? Do you think he should be higher? Where would you actually rate Brock Purdy? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.